1 week off and 1 week on, and then have a week off whilst other pupils are taught. That's been drawn up according to the Daily Telegraph this morning. The Education Minister, Nick Gibb, said measures were already being put in place to ensure safety.
Children will be in bubbles, so in primary school there'll be a bubble of their class, so they won't mix with other classes. And in secondary school, lessons. The bubble will be a year group, but we're also saying, even within that year, you don't want pupils unnecessarily mixing with other pupils unless they have to because they're going to the same chemistry lesson and so on. But also there's increased hygiene, increased cleaning, staggered playtime, staggered lunch breaks.
I think it seems to make them I know if they close the pubs, we can open the schools. I was just accepting that all the pupils are in. I don't understand.
So 10 days ago, Professor Richard gave a press conference with Boris Johnson, and in that press conference he said that the country was at the outer limits, or the government was at the outer limits of what it could do in terms of easing restrictions, but at the same time ensuring that there wasn't a second spike of COVID-19. And because the thinking is that because we're at the outer limits, if we want to go further in one area, then we need to tighten those restrictions in another area. So it's not possible, from what Professor Whitty was saying, Chief Medical Officer was saying, to make further relaxation of the restrictions and not see a second wave of COVID-19.
Okay, all right. Theo Usherwood reporting, political editor, thank you. Close the puffs means we can open the schools. Clearly, I have been away. I can't quite get my head around it. All right, let's take this on then. Obviously, now, I would imagine we're some of the region about 3 weeks ago, aren't we? Roughly, for your school holiday, before your child or your children go, well, potentially go back to school. And just ask yourself this. Can you imagine now, they didn't have any school from March 23rd, which was a Friday. So that was it. That was prior to Easter. No school then, and now possibly, in some instances, they won't be going back next month. And you know, again, in some instances, this is pure weaponization or weaponizing by some teaching unions. Matthew Irving is head teacher of Whitelands Park Primary School in Berkshire. Joins me now. What are your plans you have for next month for your pupils? Good morning.
Well, I hate to admit it, but I have to totally agree with the Prime Minister. We need to get back into school with the children as quickly as possible. They need to be learning, they need to be preparing for the rest of their lives and not falling any further behind. They need the social skills that they learn working with each other and the discipline that, however hard parents try, they don't have the opportunities that we do at schools to teach their children those things.
So you're confident you can get all your pupils back behind their respective desks?
I believe that we can provide something for that reassures the parents that we can do that safely and properly with no massive difficulties. I am talking about primary. I wouldn't begin to know how to do secondary, if I'm honest.
Right. Surely, in a way, secondary is going to be strangely easier, isn't it? Because the children become more disciplined. They're less likely to hug each other. Is that right?
I think that ultimately the issues are more around the mixing of bubbles, isn't it? And moving from one lesson to another and the number of different teachers that a group would see. Certainly, at one point, we were looking at only one teacher and one teaching assistant working with a bubble at a time. If you're having that many adults, in many respects, for me, the issue of COVID is more of a worry for the staff room, for the staff room than it is for the children, because it will have a greater impact on them, if that makes sense.
And physically, how will your school be different next month, Mr. Irving?
Well, of course, we've been open, as you said before, but ultimately we're going to look at bubbles of a year group, so children will arrive slightly later, and they will, some year groups may have to leave slightly earlier. They'll be taught as a bubble of a year group. The break times will have to be staggered, and lunch times also. We may well be considering lunchtime in classrooms and things like that, but But we need to do everything we can to make sure that the school is as normal as possible.
Well, the best of luck to you and your colleagues. Well done, Mr. Irving. Thank you for your time. Matthew Irving, head teacher of Whitelands Park Primary School. That's in Thatcham in Berkshire. Listening, Tom Richmond, who's director of the EDSK think tank and served as government advisor at the Education Department. He worked with both Nicky Morgan and Michael Gove. What would you say about the Prime Minister's School? Is it a moral duty? Is that the right language to use, Mr. Richmond? Good morning.
It is a moral duty. Good morning. I mean, we knew even before COVID-19 came along that by the time pupils got to the end of secondary school, there was about an 18-month gap in the learning of the pupils from the most advantaged homes compared to the most disadvantaged homes, and that's why the government have now clearly decided very actively that they can't let the situation go on any longer. As you mentioned earlier, 6 months out of school, that will have disproportionately affected the pupils in the most disadvantaged backgrounds. We have to do something about it now, so he's certainly right to say we've got a moral duty to open the schools.
Can they take a hard line, do you think, with the teaching unions here? What should the government, because there will be undoubtedly resistance in some areas, won't there?
There is no zero risk option, as you and your listeners know. We simply don't know exactly what's going to happen, but looking at what we've seen in other countries, the risk of transmission does appear to be relatively low. There's an upcoming study by Public Health England that emerged over the weekend that more than 20,000 pupils in this country and 100 teachers, and they found there was very little evidence that the virus seems to be transmitted in schools. The teaching unions are saying they want to reopen schools, but they also want a robust test and trace system in place, and we're just not sure whether the current test and trace system is ready for 25,000 schools in this country to open to all their pupils in September. So there is a reasonable question mark over that.
Lastly, what do you see happening in around 3 weeks' time? Do you think there will be some schools that hold out? What do you anticipate?
Well, when we talk about reopening schools, I think there are some legitimate questions around exactly what kind of education these schools are going to be able to offer. I mean, the government have already said they want schools to offer a broad curriculum in September, but they've also said they want schools to catch up on the content that's been missed. We don't know how that's going to work out, particularly for large GCSEs and A-level qualifications. What about breakfast clubs and after-school clubs that are so important for getting working parents back to work if schools aren't able to contact youth? And the government's plans to reopen the economy might start to sway a little bit, it seems. So when we talk about open schools, it is the right thing to do. But we've already heard from your colleague, it might be schools being 1 week on, 1 week off, etc. We don't know whether parents are going to be able to flex around that. So there are still some concerns, I think, for a lot of parents about what they're really going to be able to do for themselves as well as their kids next month.
Grateful for your time, Tom Richmond, is director of the EDSK think tank and served as a government advisor at the Education Department to both Michael Gove and Nicky Morgan. Can you honestly, I'd be intrigued if you are a teacher and you have any concerns. Well, concerns, of course you have concerns, but you actually think it's not right to open the school, reopen the schools, whatever it might be. Just get the children, anyone give an argument against that. We go elsewhere in the world. International donors pledge €250 million in aid for Lebanon. Former Middle East Minister Alistair Byrd.
The UK is good at responding to emergencies like this. We've already sent medical experts, search and rescue teams. The ambassador on the ground is working with the Lebanese government.
And in other news, why has it taken the BBC 12 days, count them, 12 days, to apologise for using the N-word in its entirety in a news report? Details after this. 7:15 LBC News. Holly Jones.
There are growing calls for Boris Johnson to increase coronavirus testing and tracing so schools can safely reopen without having to put more restrictions on businesses. Wales is seeing more lockdown measures ease this morning. Gyms, swimming pools and leisure centres can now reopen. After scorching temperatures for many, forecasters say parts of the UK could be hit by severe thunderstorms, meaning possible disruption. And the weather, those thunderstorms across much of England, Wales and Northern Ireland. Sunny spells in northwest Scotland and southeastern England, a high of 32 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Joanne. We're very slow on the A2 westbound from the Cobham services to Northfleet because of an accident. The overnight roadworks have finished, but there's been a separate accident now and it's very slow for about 40 minutes on the approach. Queues on the A13 westbound to Stamford Le Hope, that's also because of an accident. In Forest Gate, Green Street is closed both ways after a fire in a building, and in Walthamstow, Forest Road stays closed both ways because of a burst water main. On the underground, the District Line is suspended between Edgware Road and High Street, Kensington, and there are severe delays now on the Circle and Hammersmith and City lines.
This is LBC. I'm driving. So what, you might think? Well, I'm driving with my set of brand new tyres I just had fitted at Quick Fit.
me to sign them, and the chairman having the cash. If I wasn't sure, then it wasn't worth the gamble. Sometimes your best bet is not to take the bet at all. I've got to run, pal. The dog's just peed in my slippers.
Harry? Listen to Harry, and please gamble responsibly. 18 plus, begambleaware.org. Help keep everyone secure by keeping track of your visitors with 360 ICT's Proximity Contact Tracing System. Proximity Contact Tracing is a tool for helping to manage COVID-19. Our tracing system uses your Wi-Fi infrastructure to track the movements of visitors and employees on your premises. It's precise and efficient, so learn more about 360 ICT's Proximity Contact Tracing System. For more information, visit 360ict.co.uk.
Heroes. They're the ones we turn to in our darkest hour. Like when you blow a fuse and the lights go off. From electrics to heating, plumbing to plastering. With local heroes, every job completed by an expert tradesperson comes with a 12-month British Gas guarantee when you pay online. So if it needs fixing, there's a local hero for that. To get a quote, search local heroes. Terms and conditions apply.
It's a sunny day in Admouth, but Tom is stuck at his computer.
Oh, Tom, you should be outside having fun.
I agree, Admiral, but I need to sort out the home insurance.
It was your wife's car insurance last month. Let me help.
Thanks to Admiral, Tom can bundle his home and car insurance and get a lovely multi-cover discount.
Car and home insurance all in one place.
What could be easier?
Admiral Multi-Cover. Rewardingly simple.
Let's get back to the way we were, to fun, to the cinema, to gigs and galleries, the gym, the thrill of a stadium, to being with each other, to the things we love.
Testing is free, quick and vital to stop the spread of coronavirus. So let's get tested and get back to the things we love. If you're feeling unwell, get a free test now. Call 119 or go to nhs.uk.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Call 0345 6060 973.
20 after 7 is the time we're looking at the story then about schools and the possibility that they will not all return in around 3 weeks' time. I would imagine your child or your children going back to school. It's the front page of various aspects of education, make the front pages of some of the newspapers. For the Daily Telegraph, union plan for schools to go week on, week off. That explains in the headline exactly what a headline's meant to do, tells you what the story is, and we explained that to you earlier. Another level of education, the front page of the Daily Mail. This will concern you if you have just done, I'm so sorry, if you've just done your A-level, you haven't been able to do your A-levels, have you? If you've just been through that year and you're waiting your assessment, of course that's later this week, I believe it's Thursday. University places in peril amid exam chaos, and this is a very interesting story we're going to look at later in the show, which is that, and obviously they're faced with challenges, but it appears that in some instances they are going to try and aggregate the grades. So that is, just for the purpose of explanation, imagine the Nick Ferrari Academy has never had a pupil in its history that's ever got above a C in geography, okay? But then you have some amazing child who comes along who is just knocks the ball out of the park and gets an A star. He or she probably might not get that A star because the Nick Ferrari Academy does not have a record of great geography students. How unfair is that for that kid? And there are already parents who are getting ready. There's one father who's ready to take a judicial review about that over his daughter. In fact, I think, did I say geography? I think it's exactly this problem at Shoebury-Ness High School. Here we are. A pupil is meant to get A stars. I'm so sorry, an A star and 2 A's. But she fears she will not get above a C because this particular school does not have a tremendous track record. And she, this young woman, now fears she might not get to Sussex University. So the dad is getting ready, as I say, to take everyone to court. That's the big story we're looking at later in the show. Education on the front page of the Metro, of course the biggest red, not the biggest selling, but the biggest red newspaper, and testing time for schools. The Times says, make virus tests routine for teachers and pupils. The Guardian tells us the story that we'll look at later in the show about the Labour MP, Dawn Butler, who happens to be a black woman. Anger at police after traffic stop. Her claim is that she was stopped because, of course, her colour. And the Daily Express says last Britain is beating the virus. Look, I know I've been away last week. It doesn't feel like it as I came back. And the Daily Mirror and the Sun, unsurprisingly, when you consider their show business background and heritage, if you will, they have the extraordinary story, and we must wish him well. Simon Cowell, as the Sun puts it, is lucky not to be paralysed after he broke his back in 3 he suffered those because, have you heard this? He's on an electric bicycle and he decided to do a wheelie in front of his son. And I've only ever met him a couple of times. Mr. Cow, you're 60. You don't do wheelies in front of your son. You're asking for trouble, but I wish you a full recovery. Jason in Southampton, how concerned are you about the teachers getting back to school? Good morning.
Good morning. Good to have you back.
No, thank you.
I'm really concerned, Nick. I cannot believe that the teachers have got this opinion that it's not safe to go back. And it's in life,
Everything's fixed. Yeah.
everything is.
Yeah.
In life, when you need a specialist, you go and employ them. When you need a specialist, you go and employ the employer. Teachers should stick to teaching and let the specialist tell them that it's safe to go back and fix them.
Do you think some unions, and I'm using the word again because I can't think of a better one, have weaponised this?
Absolutely. We've actually fallen out with two defence colours.
Right.
Because we know that they were sent at home with 100% starting.
Right.
Well, a lot of us who work for ourselves have had a really hard time.
Indeed.
And last week it started again. Well, can we go back? Can we not go back?
Yes.
Is it safe?
Yes.
And I said to my friend today, I know next week you ever watched the Dallas Cowboys behind the scenes.
Oh no, I've heard about this. Yeah, I've heard about this. Yeah.
Fantastic. The one thing that the Dallas Cowboys is, as they walk down the tunnel to go and win a football match, above their head, the sign says, "Do your job." Once they do it else, it doesn't worry about next week. It says, "Do your job, concentrate on yourself,
Yeah.
and walk, okay?" And I'm just sick of the teachers
And indeed not doing their job, to pick up on what you were saying from that documentary. Jason, thank you. Strong words to get us started. More reaction on that in just a moment. Now, in this story that we're going to discuss now, BBC Director General Lord Hall, Tony Hall, has apologised and said a mistake was made after a news report containing a racial slur was broadcast last month. Yes, it's taken the BBC 12 days to move on this. Over 18,000 people complained after the N-word was used in a report about a racially aggravated attack in Bristol. Here comes the report, here comes the audio, or the sound from the original report at the end of July. And of course we have bleeped out the word. But the report starts with an account from an eyewitness at the scene voiced by an actor.
Saw two white men running away. Then I noticed the black man was covered in blood, and I guessed from the angle of the car that had been driven deliberately at him. Just a